The big news, Myles Garrett. It's shocking to me, champ, because he requested to be traded. And now, and at one point, the Browns did offer him, and it was reported he turned it down. But with this contract, the Browns signed Myles Garrett to a record-breaking contract extension that averaged $40 million per season, including $123.5 million guaranteed. I mean, doesn't that make him the highest non-quarterback in the NFL? And just a few days ago, Mason Crosby got that big-time contract with the Raiders. And shout outs to you. You did a great job with your analysis on TikTok, champ. For Cleveland, okay, it's great that you still have Myles Garrett, but if you're Myles Garrett, I thought you wanted to win. Now, he's well deserving of the money, champ. Don't get me wrong. But Cleveland, there's no chance for them to win. I mean, you have the second overall pick in the draft. We already talked about Deshaun Watson. We don't need to go any further. We already know. When you look at the rest of the AFC North, it's still Baltimore's team. Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin is still going to be there. So I still believe Pittsburgh is still going to compete. And we'll talk about the Bengals later on in the show because they're a mess. But that's the story. But that's later on for the show. I get it, Myles Garrett. He's well deserving of the money, champ. One of the preeminent defensive players, one of the preeminent players in the NFL. But at the same time, man, and also, too, he has a no-trade clause. So he can determine where he wants to be traded. But with that being said, champ, I thought he was interested in winning. Ain't no chance in hell, in the words of Vince McMahon, ain't no chance in hell Cleveland is winning anytime soon. So what are your thoughts on this?
I mean, but when they give you enough money to air condition hell, it's kind of hard to turn it down at a certain point. I mean, 123 million guaranteed. Wow, that is amazing. I never thought I'd see a defensive player. Almost his whole contract is pretty much guaranteed, and rightfully so. But I'm not going to tell you any stories. They had to sell him on a bill of goods in order to be able to sell him on getting that contract. And I'm not going to tell you any lies. I do not blame Cleveland for offering him that huge contract because I'd be darned if I'm going to let my best player go to another team and win a Super Bowl. I would just assume overpay you and keep you here for the rest of the time being. Now, look, they've tried to build it on the offensive side of the ball. Go ahead and try it on the defensive side of the ball. You saw that Zadarius Smith just got released by the Detroit Lions. Yes, see if you can bring him back. You know, in order to rebuild, in order to just go ahead and just build on this defense, or your top prospect is in the draft is Abdul Carter. He's a very good edge rusher, and see if you can do exactly what the Denver Broncos did with DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller, and see if they can take you to a Super Bowl and do it defensively. They're kicking this ball on down the road with Deshaun Watson. As you saw, they freed up some money so they can.
Yes, they did restructure his contract.
Yeah, they did restructure his contract, and looking back on it, this was what it was for. And, they was over the cap at a certain point. But I don't blame Myles Garrett for taking that contract. I don't think he was going to get that anywhere at these super contending teams. And like I said, for the Cleveland Browns, I'm not about to let you go to Philly. You're not about to go to San Francisco. And you're sure as heck not about to go within my division and go to Pittsburgh and win 2-3 Super Bowls. I would just assume overpay you at this point. And I don't blame the Cleveland Browns. It's like, hey, it's cheaper to keep them because guess what? It's going to cost you more in the long run. And the thing is, with the draft coming up, I don't think teams were as anxious in order to give up a lot in order to get Myles Garrett. It would have taken the farm, the horse, the car, and the Corvette in order to get him. So I don't think teams was very, very anxious, although he is a generational talent in order to get him at this point because they would have had to give up a little bit of too much. And the only teams that could have afforded to give that to them was contending teams who was, late in the draft. So I don't think guys were, and even with some of the contending teams that would made the championship games last year, they still have things they have to address as well. The Buffalo Bills, they need a pass rusher. But guess what? Because they just released Von Miller, they need another pass rusher. But it would have took a lot in order for them to get it. They still have to fulfill needs elsewhere. Your Washington Commanders, they needed a pass rusher, but they just lost Jonathan Allen, and they lost Montez Sweat
Chase Young.
um, and Chase Young consecutive years. So they have a lot of needs they have to fulfill. When you look at the only team that was just void of any big time player was the Philadelphia Eagles and the Kansas City Chiefs. But everybody else who were contending teams, they pretty much would have had to give up a lot in order to get him, which would have set them a little bit behind. So with the exception of the Eagles and the Chiefs. But yeah, I don't blame Cleveland for overpaying him, and I don't blame Myles Garrett for taking that contract. Like I said, they had to take him behind closed doors and say, look, this is our plan. Because Deshaun Watson's contract, his last year is next year. So, I mean, it's only a matter of time. Not to mention, from what I've read, they plan on re-signing Nick Chubb as well. That was part of the deal as well. So that gets complicated because
his injuries.
Because of his injury. On the other hand, me being the Georgia Bulldog that I am, he did it before. He can do it again. So there's a lot of up and down situation with that. But as far as Myles Garrett, I don't blame him for taking the contract, and I don't blame Cleveland for offering it to him. Guess what? I would rather overpay you for years to come than for you to go somewhere else and make us look silly in our own division. Can you have imagined Myles Garrett with the Philadelphia Eagles?
I think the only reason why
him in San Francisco.
I think the Eagles only interfered because there was discussions about Washington trying to trade him. And I told you before about Howie Roseman. I told people he's the best executive in football. Don't be surprised he may try to do something. Now, fortunately for me, even though we didn't get Myles Garrett, Philly didn't get him either. And plus, he was letting go of some noticeable players. He let go of Darius Slay. He let go of – didn't he let go of Josh Sweat?
Yeah, I think Josh Sweat is gone.
Right. So it seemed to me he wanted to let go of his old players, clear up some cap space, and see what he can do to try to get Myles Garrett. But fortunately, that wasn't the case. But I mean, that would be unfair, champ, to put Myles Garrett with the Philadelphia Eagles just fresh off from winning the Super Bowl and to put him with Jordan Davis, Jalen Carter, Nakobe Dean, that defense with Vic Fangio. Nah, that'd be unfair, man. I mean, they already had ice cream with all the sprinkles. What else? You want the whipped cream? You want the caramel? You want the banana? You want all that? You want the strawberries? How much more can you get in Philadelphia, which is Chocolate City? So, yeah, I mean, look, man, Philadelphia, I mean, they already got enough. But I'm happy for Myles Garrett regarding the money part, champ. But winning, they're not going to win anytime soon. So is Myles Garrett, is he willing to accept the reclamation process? Because that's what it looks like for Cleveland so far for now.
He's going to have to, because he had to, like I said, they had to take him behind closed doors and say, we need you here in order to have a building block for you, in order to have a building block for years to come.
Yes.
Because if they take Abdul Carter, then that's a cornerstone for your defense for at least the next 5 years, at least until the prime of his career. If they just say, okay, look, we know we're not going to win on offense too much. Let's just go pure defensively and see if we can win there and win with ball control and see if we can sneak a quarterback in the second round or something like that and see if we can kind of sneak it off. Yeah, they had to have conversations. But unfortunately for Myles Garrett this year, I don't think you're going too much of anywhere. Even if you do get Abdul Carter or Zadarius Smith back at this point, I don't think they're going anywhere anytime soon. I'm going to quote a great man, a man that shares my last name, my father. It was championships versus the bag, and the bag won in this situation. And fortunately for Myles Garrett, he's been one of the best pass rushers in the league in this generation. he was able to obtain the bag. And I think that, hey, and it's also a bit of comfort within that franchise. You don't necessarily know how much comfort you're going to have in another franchise. But yeah, they had to have went behind closed doors with him and said, hey, this is our plan. This is our reclamation project. We're going to get you what you need on the defensive side of the ball. We're going to get some things in place, and we're going to get us in back in the position in order to win the championship. But I will say this. You getting a new contract don't mean much, because that just makes you easier to trade. We've seen plenty of times where guys sign these big, huge contracts and then they're traded within a year or two after the contracts. We've seen it. So that doesn't mean you're not tradable. Now, granted, you have a no trade clause, so you have to relinquish that trade. You have to relinquish that no trade clause. But just because you sign that new contract does not mean you're not tradable, because certain assets are tradable. And if teams offer you a haul in order to get it, if a team offers you a haul in order to get you, then unfortunately you're expendable at a certain point. But Myles Garrett has to accept the fact that, hey, you chose the bag over winning championships, over going to the 49ers, over going to the Steelers, over going to one of these premier teams, even going to the Washington Commanders or one of those places. You chose the bag. So guess what? You got your wish and everything that goes with it. And you have to start asking yourself at this point in time, you got to start asking yourself this. Is players saying in the NFL that I want to be traded? Do they really want to be traded, or is this a ploy for them to get paid?
In this situation, he definitely wanted his money.
So, I mean,
and he got it.
And he got it. So you got to start asking yourself this question. When somebody say, I want to be traded from now on, are you trying to be traded for real, or you trying to be paid? Because if you wanted to be traded, I believe if you would have made a stink about it, because you went on practically a world tour on saying, I want to be traded. I want to be traded. I want to be traded. But then, like I said, they back that Brinks truck up to your house, and then all of a sudden, I don't want to be traded no more. But understand what comes with this bag. It's a lot of responsibility and a lot of, you kind of being quiet about it, because you chose that bag over championship. So just remember what happened, Myles Garrett. I'm happy for you, but remember what you signed up for.
I'm reading a statement here from Nicole Lynn, who is the agent of Myles Garrett. Andrew Berry, who's the GM of the Cleveland Browns, and I spent the last 36 hours getting the deal done. Basically, Myles had a change of heart, and he's excited to go from Cleveland to Canton and chase a championship in Ohio. When he made that decision, he said, I want to get this done before free agency so I can start recruiting free agents so I can help the team. And I said, all right, we have 24 hours to get this done, and we did it. I'm reading here a little bit in the statement from Cleveland.com from Mary Kay Cabot, who does a great job of covering the Cleveland Browns. Please go check her out. Says it right here. Browns owner Jimmy Haslam, who recently declined Garrett's request for a meeting, did speak top Garrett Sunday after the extension was agreed upon and congratulated him, a leaked source said. The extension adds a surprising twist to a saga that began on December 20th when Garrett revealed he might want out of the Browns if the Browns couldn't show him a blueprint for contending in 2025. So, look, champ, I hope it goes well for Myles Garrett. To your point, he chose the money instead of going somewhere else to compete. So, and I don't know, champ, to recruit free agents to come in Cleveland. No disrespect, Cleveland ain't the most desirable or attractive market. And on top of that, they're coming off a tumultuous season. Deshaun Watson, yes, he did restructure his contract, but he's not going to play this season because he ruptured his Achilles for the second consecutive time. So who's going to be at quarterback for them? Nick Chubb is recovering from an injury. Do you keep Jameis for another year?
You go out and see what you can find in the late rounds and in the early rounds. That's the only thing that you could do. I mean, see who's dropping and see whose stock is rising. And hey, that's all that you could do at this point. Now, like I said, I will go the defensive route and say, hey, look, Myles, we're going to either bring back Zadarius Smith or we're going to bring back Abdul Carter or we're going to draft Abdul Carter. I think that Abdul Carter and Myles Garrett would be one deadly combination. I think that that will be a deadly combination for years to come. And, you know, especially him being on that rookie contract. But they have got to have a solid plan. And if he's trying to recruit guys as far as coming into Cleveland, the best way to sell that recruiting job is this. Yeah, you're not going to have the nightlife. You're not going to have the glitz and glamour. But think about what it would mean for you to win a Super Bowl on a team that hasn't won anything since the late, great Jim Brown, that has had so much, you know, just heartbreak, you know, Red Right 88, the drive, the fumble, the sale. Think about how good that will go on your resume if you're able to help the great Myles Garrett and the Cleveland Browns win a Super Bowl. That would be my pitch. Think about what LeBron did for the Cleveland Cavaliers and what he
I
did
was
for the
going to
city.
bring that up.
Think about what great minds think alike.
Great minds
Think
think alike.
about what the great LeBron James was able to do for this city. Now amplify that times a million, maybe a billion, on what that would do for not only the city of Cleveland, but for the state of Ohio. You will have been in one a super. You will have won a Super Bowl before the Cincinnati Bengals, who's had a better quarterback, not once, not twice, but three times over. Remember Carson Palmer, you know, Andy Dalton, now Joe Burrow. They had a better quarterback. They still haven't won. But think about how big this would be for the Cleveland Browns in order to finally bring a Lombardi trophy to a city with so much heartbreak in the sports community. A city that is looking once again to have a champion. A city who has a chance not only to win an NBA Finals this year with the Cleveland Cavaliers, but also an NFL championship, a Super Bowl.
Not to
That would
mention the
be,
fact that Ohio State did win a national championship this season.
yes, that would be my pitch. Let's bring back the glory to Cleveland, just like Jim Brown did. And if you're able to recruit play, look, if there's any player that can recruit you, guess what? Myles Garrett can. I'm the best pass rusher in the league. I'm the best pass rusher in the league. And guess what? If you're a defensive player, you're gonna love that because guess what? I don't have to worry about being double teamed. You're gonna double team him. That's gonna free me up. And if I'm Abdul Carter, I'm hoping that the Cleveland Browns draft me. That way, they're gonna focus all their attention on Myles because they got tape on him already. They ain't necessarily got it on me. And you can't block both of them. Can't block both of them. You saw that with Harry Carson and Lawrence Taylor. You saw that with Greg Lord and Kevin Green. You saw that with a lot of other bookends. You saw that with Justin Tuck and Michael Strahan, him and UCU in Europe.
DeMarcus Von Miller.
Yes. So Bradley Chubb and Von Miller. When DeMarcus Ware retired, they able to draft Bradley Chubb. So you can't block us all. So I would be diligently trying to recruit players based on look what we can do. Think about how much fame, notoriety, how much commercial success that would be for us to finally bring a championship back to the house that Jim Brown built, the house that Art Modell left, and something that nobody has been able to do, not even remotely. So that would be my pitch if I was Myles Garrett. And if anybody can recruit players right now, it will be Myles Garrett. And you got to think about the state of the sports community in Cleveland as well. It might not have the best nightlife, but like J.R. Smith said, when you don't have the great nightlife, that gives you an opportunity to focus. And when you're in a small market like Cleveland, who's desperately, looking for a winner, then you're the toast of the town when you're winning. So let's get it.
I'm sure that Champ would love to be the Cleveland Browns ambassador at some point in time. Heck, who knows? But